Right, there we go. Right, welcome to our second podcast, which is about rail shooters. So the main objective is just to talk about what is a rail shooter, the main rail shooter franchises, the secondary rail shooter franchises, how it affects console versions, and how rail shooters could move on in the next generation, especially with the huge amounts of technology that the next generation consoles are bringing in. With us today, we've got Commander Nippon,
Right.
um, Firei,
Yeah.
and Junk Boy.
Yo.
So, right, come on, Nippon, you're first. Right.
I'm first. Well,
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah. Oh yeah. What is a rail shooter?
yeah. No, what is a rail shooter in your opinion, anyway?
Well, a rail shooter is a game that moves you along. You've got very little sort of movement in terms of where you're wishing to go, just to get to your next objective.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's about
Mm.
it.
No, it's true. At the end of the day, it's like the concept of rail shooters are like super simple. So it's like, even like games that can't be considered like that, not really considered rail shooters at first, can be considered rail shooters. I'm sure like Junk Boy knows more about. Like he was speaking about bits of it earlier, actually.
Yeah, it's I mean, I've got to say, when I've read this out, what is a rail shooter? I can't help but think of just one word, and that's just defunct. Rail shooters, they're a great kind of they were a great game and can be used to great effect, especially in arcades. But I can't help but feel that they're really a genre that we've lost the need for, especially with I think the rise of first-person shooters really kind of put the nail on its head. But what Kev was saying about them being very linear is always going to be something that is going to be one of their interesting points, but also one of the major downfalls. And I'll talk a bit more about some of the other games that kind of went away from that. But for now, it is quite interesting to talk about them because it is great to talk. I would love to kind of talk about, what if they are dying, and if they are dying, what's kind of killing them.
Okay, that makes no, it's definitely like something to be agreed on because especially with the whole rise of first-person shooters and like other various third-person shooters as well, it makes it really hard for rail shooters to keep original and keep themselves going over time. So it's an interesting like concept to think about, especially with the other aspects of shooting games in general. So
Yeah.
right, let's get to the main part of this podcast and main rail shooter franchises. Fury, I'm sure you've got like a couple that you could mention.
Man, where do I start?
The
Well,
easy place to start, I think. So
yeah, House of the Dead. Everybody,
yes, House of the Dead.
everybody. I think everyone's started off in the arcades with this one. If I'm honest.
Yeah. That
Uh,
or sorry.
oh, Point Blank. I think Point Blank might work.
Yeah, I started on Point Blank back on the PlayStation.
Yeah. But before, I guess when you started off, it was. I guess in the West, especially, it was when these House of the Dead really did start off. It was sort of a phenomenon because like people sort of went into play. People would literally waste pound coins just to get past this single game. It was quite the thing at a time. I recall as a kid. Oh my god, I spent like probably like 40 to 50 pounds trying to clock House of the Dead 1.
My days.
I think you have to remember throw it back further than
Yeah.
that, because you got to remember. I remember being 5 years old and seeing like the Star Wars one, and even the Jurassic Park one, and those ones. It was
Oh,
like
the Jurassic Park.
you were
one
in the
cab.
car and you had the
Yeah,
gun.
so
And that
good.
really gave you an experience. Yeah, it was like nothing you'd ever played at the time.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
Right, guys, I've got a horrible story to tell actually. Like in
Sure, go
terms
for it.
of House of Dead, and I know you guys are gonna laugh you guys' asses off when you hear this, but I remember seeing House of the Dead 1 when I was back in a kid when I was like 6 years old, and I was so spooked on it I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. Seriously,
It was the music or the zombie.
Oh, there's nothing scary. I mean, I think yeah, back in the time of the graphics, but you look back on that, you just got to think, what the hell is scary about it?
the chariot.
Yeah,
Nah, on a level it was the chariot. The chariot really did like blow me up, and I could legitimately say that was a 10-0 matchup at the time. So,
Right.
yeah, exactly. It was horrible. But we got House
And
of. So carry on, Alex.
so I was going to just talk about there. We're talking about other kind of great shooters. I mean, you can't obviously also take away from Time Crisis. I mean, how many times you've always had that moment of playing two people in Time Crisis with that foot pedal, which is one of the
Yeah.
best things you've ever added to the franchise.
No,
Yeah, Time
definitely.
Crisis 2 was definitely a changer as well. With the what you call it, the G-Con that actually rattled, had a recoil. Amazing,
Oh yeah.
so good. I always wish the console versions would have the recoil on the guns as well, but it never did.
I actually do think they did have the
Did
recoil,
they?
but I think it was more of a third party
Yeah.
sort of peripheral.
I
They
never got it.
started
I got the official Namco one, so
Yeah, the fish one. That's the one I had as well. I also think that Time Crisis isn't Time Crisis without the pedal, though. You need that pedal because it's just the best part of it.
yeah.
So,
I
I
agree.
mean, I always remember being in the arcade and you'd actually press the pedal. I couldn't help but also duck down a little when I pressed the pedal, just for that effect of really going and hiding.
actually, like, not too long ago, maybe just sometime last year, I wandered to a pub in Watford and found Time Crisis 2 sitting there. So I just thought, you know what, I'll just go in. You go in on my own, sit and just relive my memories. And I actually did find that I would do that to this day. It's just like duck down after once releasing the pedal.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially with a game like Time Crisis that has been going on for absolutely ages. We've got Time Crisis like 1 to 4, which spans what three different Sony consoles. Then you've got like the spin-offs like Crisis Zone. Then you've got Raising Storm, and you've got to think about all the other games that it spawned, stuff like Dead Storm Pirates and that other weird funky rail shooter, which I can't really remember off the top of my head right now. The one that's got the giant insects and everything.
Fuck. I do remember. I can't. The name doesn't ring a bell,
I
but
swear.
I think going through all the rail shooters we've all played is a bad idea. 'Cause I don't know the names of half of them, but I definitely played them.
Actually, wait, hold on. I remember it. It's called Paradise Lost. There we go.
oh yeah.
Oh.
Yes. I'm
I'm
amazing.
trying to remember this one here, but we also talk about games that relate to Time Crisis. I'm trying to remember here. Point Blank was also Namco, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was an Namco-based product.
Was that at all related to Time Crisis, or just
No,
the same developer?
It was just the same developer that
That's
actually
all?
played it.
Ah, fair enough.
Made it.
To Wikipedia.
No, I can't. My laptop's all the way over there. I'm not reaching it from here.
Oh.
I'm comfy in my chair.
Alright, fair enough. So we've got stuff like Time Crisis and House of the Dead. It seems that the two major franchises in terms of rail shooters is obviously Sega and Namco. Namco? Yes, Namco. So it's like obviously Namco's got other stuff, obviously like Point Blank and Time Crisis and everything based around Time Crisis games. And you've got Sega who've done stuff like Paradise Lost, House of the Dead, Dead Storm Pirates, and Ghost Squad as well. So
I think you're actually missing two vital series here.
are you going to say Lethal Enforcers or Virtua Cop?
No. Virtua Cop was going to be one of them,
Okay.
Oh yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
Silent Scope being the other.
Oh,
Silent Scope.
Silent Scope.
I love Silent Scope. It's
Oh.
Konami though.
Oh, is that
Ooh.
Konami?
Yeah, it was.
That's
Oh
Konami.
shit.
I used to remember there used to be one in the old AMF bowling near the Sky Park in Glasgow, where you could actually get the one that gave you money, and you could do like the one where you have to actually make the shot to get money. And I always kept trying. And for about the amount of times I won, I spent double the money just trying to get that win. So like I'd spend like £4 and walk away with 2, and I'd consider it a victory.
That's sick. The thing is, when you think about a game like Silent Scope, where obviously you got Time Crisis, which is based around the pedal, and then you've got games like Ghost Squad, which has got a different sort of gun and stuff like that. You kind of look at a game like Silent Scope, and it's like a whole different. It's like the same concept, but around a different concept sort of thing. It's like the fact that you have to use precise aiming instead of like guns blazing, and you actually have to use the scope to aim. It's just
It was also really quite a fun way if you ever got the chance. You could play that game with a spotter who could always kind of tell you, you want to try to give it like to the left or to the right, and it would give a really interesting dynamic. It's more simulation in that sense. If you ever could get someone to help you on your side, also made getting that money a lot easier.
I know Firei brought himself in for like Silent Scope like all the time, every time. To be
Oh
honest.
no, I played. I'm a huge fan of Silent Scope. Well, the thing is, obviously, the console versions failed in comparison to the arcade, which actually gave you a full sniper rifle to look through. So it was actually amazing at the time. It was, yeah, like you said, less about like shooting and reloading. It's more about precision and finding enemies quickly before they shoot you. So yeah, it was at the time. It was as a kid. Can you imagine just holding a scope the size of you?
Oh yes.
I remember
It's the most amazing feeling.
Just the weight of that gun was just phenomenal.
No, indeed.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it like stuck down onto the machine, or am I just imagining this here?
Nah,
You actually had to lean over the machine, and you actually had to kind of. I always remember being like it was too. I remember it was too big or too small. One of the two. And it was always the case that I always kind of get this really uncomfortable like press into my chest, and it always really put me off my shot.
It wasn't the fact that it was stuck down to the arcade machine. It sort of had this little bit of freedom where you could move it up and down, left and right.
So I'm just obviously holding it like a gun then.
Yeah.
Legit. Right, so we've got like our main base franchises, which is like, if you say that to anyone, like most people would recognize the name or they'll recognize the game off the top of their heads. But let's have a focus on like some of the secondary sort of franchises, the franchises that you don't hear about so much or you don't see about so much. And like the first one, like when we discussed earlier, came up was Resident Evil, Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Side Chronicles. Oh god, I find that so difficult to say. But actually, I know that they're not the first rail shooters they ever made, though. I'm trying to remember what it is. Off the top.
I don't know. I mean, you had Survivor, but Survivor was more of a first-person shooter.
True.
Because it was a lot more.
Consoles.
But no, I can't think of anyone before that in the Resident Evil series. But no, I think it's the only one I can think of actually. It's just
Was
I can
it
only,
Dead,
I can only remember.
Dead Aim was the one that came before the Chronicle series, which was a rail shooter. That's the one I remember.
I was about to say, were you talking about just like Capcom rail shooters in general, or was just from specifically the Resident Evil franchise?
I'm not too sure if Capcom's done any other rail shooters. If they have, please enlighten me. Oh, Dino Crisis. Whoops. Nope, that's not that one either, actually.
No, Dino Crisis was a full first-person shooter.
I'm trying to remember Dead Aim.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
God, I'm looking up Dead Aim now, and yeah, it was the first rail shooter before the Dark Side and Umbrella Chronicles.
Wait, what's their name? Is that no, that's something else. Does anyone remember this this Resident Evil arcade where you had to move the gun left and right to strife?
Yeah,
And
it was. That was.
I've got
I
what
want
that
to
was called.
Survivor, but I don't.
Whoops, a bit of a disconnect there.
Sugary.
That cut off.
Yeah,
That was awesome. I'm trying to remember what that was called myself. I want to say it's not Survivor. Because I think Survivor was actually the wrong game I'm talking about there.
I think it was Gun Survivor. You might be right.
Gun
No.
Survivor sounds familiar.
Yes, it's Survivor, and Dead Aim is the sequel to Gun Survivor.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
But I remember that particularly being quite horrid to control.
Oh, it was. Because it was really designed with the second generation of the Namco gun that had the D-pad on the back, which my friend had. And if you compare that to mine, which was the first generation, that only had like the A and B buttons on the side, and it was complete balls moving about with this. It was just hell. Never
Yeah.
completed the game because it just infuriated me.
and Nemesis was chasing you in that game as well. Didn't make it easy. It's like, okay, thanks.
Them tentacles, yeah.
Back in the game, back in the days where every game had to have a nemesis. It worked so well. It worked so well in Resident Evil 2 that we'll just add it into every other game from there.
Wasn't it Resident Evil 3, the Nemesis?
No, I'm thinking like the very first example of that was obviously the Mr. X. Obviously, yeah. The idea of this big bastard that just chased you through the whole thing.
Sounds like a good day in Trocadero to me.
Yeah, that's.
Right, there was another game that I was thinking of, which I actually looked up today, which I know is a very old franchise, but I was looking it up. I was speaking to Nippon about it actually today. It was in Trocadero. It was called Elevator Action Death Parade.
Never heard of that one, man.
Nor have I.
The game is absolutely amazing. Basically, you've got a normal rail shooter, but instead of the screen being 16 by 9, it's 9 by 16.
Oh, wait, I remember that game.
Right, so you got the game squares like vertical going upwards, and there's a set of elevator doors that close every once in a while that actually close on the screen, and then you have to use the button to control when to close it and when not to close it, and when to shut like random guys in like monsters' heads in like in the middle of like this elevator. It's actually like a really, really, really fun game. Bit broken, but it's quite fun. But Trocadero had that for a bit, but well, yeah, innit?
I remember that it was in Funland. I actually sat and played it one time. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It just looked really fun, but it was just like these doors opening and closing. I just didn't know what the hell was going on.
I spent like 10 quid on that game. Me and Zero Nero played it for a bit as well. So like it was really, really fun. If anything, like that would never get a console release, because I don't think like a set of elevator doors will come in the box. So I don't think that's viable. So
Oh, it'd be great. Something like that would be great to play on your phone, though. You know, holding your phone vertically and also tapping the button, tapping the screen. Sure, that's something like that could kind of work.
yeah, I don't think the guys that can make it could actually get around to actually like programming for an iPhone. I think like them guys are not that good. Let's just say that much.
Yeah, the actual game itself was just actually piss poor, but it was just so much fun.
Yeah, the voice acting was like House of the Dead 2 like comparison. So
A random question: have you ever played like a rail shooter where the voice acting was immaculate?
it's called Galgun.
Oh, that game is just so
Well, besides that one,
Actually, I was going to come up with this one that was talking about other franchises, but a game that it fitted the game at least. Have you ever played the game Killer 7, which had rail shooter mechanics in it? Was that it was very linear in the way you moved. You couldn't deviate off this written path that you walked on. But obviously, you could stop wherever you wanted to start shooting wherever you wanted, and usually get caught in a corner whenever you didn't want. But I actually quite liked the voice acting in that because it kind of fit the storyline of being mega cheesy.
but I think that's what we like about rail shooters, for the dialogue to be ultra cheesy. I mean, who wants to do the line from House of Dead 2?
This one.
I don't want to die. My God.
Oh god, it's just come flooding back.
All of it.
Obviously, this is nothing to do with rail shooters, but it can't just beat Yakuza 1 in terms of terrible voice acting.
I don't think so. Have you played Xenogears?
Oh dear.
Oh god, I like Xenogears, voice acting and all. Well, but there's always a line that me and Nippon keep throwing this line against each other from Yakuza 1.
Like
Was it you tried? Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, was this line we kept throwing each other for like ages after we heard it? Where you kind of get spotted coming out whatever it was. And I guy turns around, he just kind of goes, "He's fucking Yakuza!" It's just a line that just didn't get out of our head. Even years later, it still cracks us up.
These games, boy. Raw. Right, so
Yeah, back to rail shooters.
right, so we've got Killer 7. You got no, not Virtual Cop. I would say there was that game Firei was telling me about it today. Actually, the one where you run as well. Oh man, I can't remember what.
It's about the cops, and
Yeah.
you run like a stop in a spot like a total douche. But the best thing about it was the corny detective music, and that's the reason I played it. I forgot exactly what it was called. Might have been, was it Korean maybe? I don't know.
It was Korean. I could tell by the artwork it was Korean. Like, but it was. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But did anyone play the Silent Hill arcade?
Yes.
Yes.
That game was horrible.
What do you mean, Han? Game of complimentary curtains.
I actually have to say, you're gonna be hard pressed to find a silent game which isn't horrible. It's just some Silent Hill games can totally work with that, like 2 and 3.
Oh, fair enough. My biggest problem, my favorite thing about like Silent Hill the arcade was Pyramid Head basically. Like he just came in and just destroyed bare things and left, and I was like, fair enough, innit? It's like the boss fight didn't even involve you taking him down and just shoot him enough times so that you could get bored and leave. So I was like, alright, fair enough. This boss is actually GG's to the point where like beating him is where he gets bored. But there was obviously you had Silent Hill the arcade, which I did see in Trocadero the other day, so it's still about.
It's still about in there, yeah.
Mm. Um, and there was this really weird circus rail shooter that was in Las Vegas Arcade, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head either. God damn it, not doing very well today.
Oh, don't worry. I remember that. I forgot half of everything I played. So it's like you remember that LA machine guns, the one where you
Yeah.
sort of stand there and he's got the machine gun that it rattles and stuff. There's that one. I think it was called LA machine guns. Oh my god, I'm getting old, man. Getting old.
Trust me, you're not the only one. At this rate, who knows that was going to happen? So, looking at my list, we've also got stuff like Res, for example.
Oh,
There's a brilliant example.
oh, good one.
Yeah, but I think I would really call that a rail shooter the same way of the other games.
No, it's actually a really deceptive rail shooter. But
I don't know, would it be more on the case of being a shoot 'em up like all those games you used to love, the Cherry Blossom ones you always used to play on your PC.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think would it be a rail shooter though? Because like you said, if that's a rail shooter, then something like even Starwing could be considered a rail shooter.
No, I put that under shoot 'em up. I wouldn't really call it a
Yeah.
rail shooter, man. I think rail shooter needs to have that rail, that idea of not being able to move off a certain path.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the thing is, though, a lot of shoot 'em ups or shmups can be considered as rail shooters in a sense. Because if you think about it, you are still not deviating from one single path. You are still on some form of rail when it comes to shoot 'em ups.
But I think there's also the problem is the difference I'm putting into here is that obviously rail shooters in that sense, I mean shoot 'em ups in that sense, have an element of again choreography in your character and be able to move into the right places at the right time. Whereas a rail shooter kind of takes that choreography away from you. I mean, even in Killer 7, the path you had was so linear that you couldn't really do much with the movement. The most you could really do is just choose you want to take a long shot or a close shot.
But see, if we're wanting to say about deceptive rail shooters, Pokemon Snap.
Sick.
No, I'll give you that. That's a perfect example of a deceptive rail shooter. That is a rail shooter. It's just it's not a violent shooter. You're not killing things with your shots.
But then
Yeah.
again, you've got Galgun, which
Lol.
you just like
Actually,
shooting little girls, isn't it?
right. Okay, guys.
Okay,
After looking up Res a bit, it does say that it is a rail. It's a rail shooter / music game. Funnily enough, though, there's something I really want to mention about Res actually, because the reason why I think Res can actually be considered like a rail shooter for the simple fact is that when where you got stuff like shmups where it's more based on like you can move around and stuff like that. I think what makes Res a rail shooter is the fact that you are in the first person point of view from where you're standing. So I think that's the reason why they probably give it that.
Yeah, I'd actually thoroughly agree with that comment because with rail shooters, as you said, you have some freedom in terms of movement, whereas in Res and even Child of Eden, you're still stuck at that single point. You can only move your crosshair.
Oh god, I'm just trying to keep the conversation here with it. This big smile on my face. Remember the moment I learned in Child of Eden that I could play it with the move controller in one hand and a big long cigarette in the other. It really worked well.
One-way trip to Highville.
Yes, it's definitely a way of putting it. Anyway, okay, fair enough. I'll give you that one. It is. You did put it that way. I can't really see it being more of a rail shooter.
It's interestingly enough, I'm not too sure if we should talk about like the controversy behind Res, or if we should leave that for another day.
Oh,
But
what do you mean, the vibrating controllers?
yeah,
Oh, leave that for another day. I think.
That's not controversy. That's a tool.
I think if you're ever going to do an episode of sex and games, we'll come back to that one. For now, we'll leave it to rail shooters.
okay, true. All right. Someone mentioned Galgun earlier.
You and myself.
Yeah. Obviously, Galgun has gotten a lot of attention in the UK lately because of some certain guy playing it in Gaming Base.
One that guy.
Yeah, Bond that
Look who
guy.
that wanker is.
Yeah.
What happened here? I missed the story.
Basically, some guy played Galgun like during Wednesdays on Marvel, and then there was arms. So it was quite an enlightening experience anyway. But all I know, this is hearsay. This is like second-hand information. So still,
Is there any other kind of information worth repeating?
That guy's single-handedly killing the fighting game community.
Yeah, indeed.
I think all the Marvel guys just couldn't admit they loved it.
With it's in Galgun's a very interesting point because Galgun kind of takes. I think Galgun's seriousness is kind of on par to Point Blank, in terms that it's kooky to the point where it's its own style sort of thing. Obviously, it replaces all the zombies with girls, but like, fair enough. This game is pretty. I'll give it. It's pretty solid. The features, a lot of features in it, pretty good in terms of like content. But I think what's interesting about that is that when you talk about, I'm gonna go on to the mentality of like the people that kind of watch Galgun, they kind of think, "Raw, like this game is unacceptable. You're shooting little girls and stuff, blah 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 blah." And it's like you could replace them with zombies, and you've kind of got House of the Dead in a nutshell, to be honest. Minus Doki Doki mode, obviously, but that should be left for another day.
But then that's not really much of an argument. Because I mean, if you're going to say that, then you can easily say that House of the Dead can be the world's most controversial game if you replace the zombies with little girls.
Oh, indeed. It goes both ways, and I think the interesting thing about Galgun, in terms of like, obviously, if you put that whole thing aside, the gameplay is actually really, really solid. The shooting aspect is pretty much on par with House of the Dead 1 and 2. So it's very simple, but yet very effective. And it's just the interactivity is actually really good. It's got good ways of incorporating the move controller and blah 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 blah. In other words, it's like a good game, not to be slept on because of the way it looks, but indeed quite a fun game altogether.
It's
Right.
a very, very fun game.
Indeed, very fun game. Right, moving on before I get like more angry people at me. So
Well, going back to the thing you're talking about, the move controller, that actually is one of the questions you want to bring up about different types of controllers, and I think it's a really good way of bringing it up. Is then, what do you think of the old light guns compared to these games that now use your Wii remote and your move controller, and that Kinect one that can't be that much fun, but I wouldn't know. I've never used it.
Oh god, it's not that fun. I'll tell you that.
oh wait, not that fun. Are you talking about using your hand? Okay, fair enough.
There's no aspect of like social interaction.
So just to be clear, Kevin, your aspect is that using your hand is not as much fun as using a gadget. Yeah. Sorry, it's too easy. But yeah. But the question.
Go ahead.
So the actual question I was going to be asking though was, I'm another person that thinks that these Wii controllers and the Move remotes, they kind of take it away from the fun of the actual light gun games the way they used to be.
I'll say this much. I would say for light gun games in general, I think the Wii remote is complete trash in terms of using it for light gun games. The whole concept of it is fine, but unless you use a crosshair and like you have to buy the Wii
Attachment.
Yeah.
It's that the refresh rate is not that good to the point where playing stuff like House of Dead 3 and House of Dead Overkill is a complete nightmare.
Well, in truth, they're entirely different pieces of hardware, if I'm honest. Because like the Wii, the Move, whatever controls that, it was totally different from old light gun technology. What the old light guns used to do was literally take a picture of the place it was actually shooting. So it was sort of, you had to use pinpoint accuracy. So that's why you could also do stuff with, remember everyone had a Nintendo zapper, and he sort of used to go up to the screen and shoot the screen at point blank range and stuff like that. Yeah.
I wonder how that worked. I've never actually kind of got that around my head around that, how that actually worked.
I guess you could say the gun sort of takes a picture of where it is on the screen, and then it sort of transmits it through the gun. So if you shoot outside the screen, it actually would be no image because there is no image.
You're just essentially taking a picture.
Yeah, it'll make this little white square, and that's essentially where you shoot. But the Wiimote, the Move, they don't use this sort of technology. Technically, if you shoot outside the screen, you could still be within the cameras or the Wii sensor range.
Depending on the calibration, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you shoot, you could literally shoot outside the screen. You could still be shooting something because it's within that range. But it's a totally different hardware. I think that's where it differs mostly.
I could agree with that.
I mean, I completely agree that it's obviously not as fun, but I think there is obviously an element where I think, especially on consoles, real shooters have kind of had a little boost on consoles recently, thanks to things like being able to buy Resident Evil Chronicles and already have your Wii remote to play it on. And I mean, Child of Eden's a perfect example of it. I mean, Res was fun, but to be able to play it with a Move controller, it was an instant sell for me. I didn't need that to be kind of told to me any other way. I just took that game.
Look, man, give me the gun handle, give me like Child of Eden, and like give me a cigarette. I'm sorted, safe.
Again, it's a one-handed game. What more do you want?
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, you could play Child of Eden on the Kinect and still do the same thing.
Indeed.
Because I had before the Kinect when it first came out, and by God, it was just like, just wave my hand about.
Yeah, Kevin, I was going to say it's it's an audio media. Visual aids don't help.
Yeah, it was just like, wave my hand about you. Oh,
It's actually thinking of controllers. I was actually more thinking of the aspect of different games having different controllers in the arcades. For example, you've got House of Dead 3 had the good old shotgun gun controller. Oh god, that thing was horrible. And but obviously in some games, for example Ghost World, you've got like the AK-47 based like gun model in those ones. So it's like Ghost Squad, Ghost Recon,
Ghost Squad.
Ghost
Oh,
Squad.
Ghost Squad.
that was it. I'm pretty sure they had a. It wasn't an AK-47 that they used. It was more of a submachine gun.
Actually, like Wikipedia, come save me.
But yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. It was. I mean, it's just obviously just the same game with a different package, wasn't it? I mean, handgun, sniper rifle. You were talking about the silent scope earlier. Yeah, the machine gun. It's all the same game. It's just more of buying into the experience. Because I mean, when I was talking about when I was talking at the start of the podcast of them kind of being quite a niche in today's society, a lot of it is sold through the arcade, and it's sold through the arcade of being more of a simulation more these days. And I think the way it plays and the way the guns are obviously makes a big deal of it. I mean, the way you play Ghost Squad with your machine gun and being able to set it to full auto or 3 burst or single shot, it gave you an experience that not a lot of other games could give you in an arcade, and it did help it. But obviously when you go back to play things, talking about Time Crisis 2, and that gun just worked perfectly for it because all you wanted was a simple handgun to do some quick pop shooting.
It would be interesting if Time Crisis 3 and 4 actually came with the set of guns on the machine, so you had to pick up each gun separately to change weapon.
I thought I was going to go there. Yeah, it'd be a lot more interesting. Probably a lot more annoying as well, but a lot more interesting to say the least.
It would be hellishly costly as well if you think about
Yeah.
it. All that plastic.
But who hasn't done that anyway? Picked up both guns on a rail shooter in arcades, put in both coins, and trying to hold them both like a boss, and then fail miserably.
I've never been able to do that in the arcades, but I remember in the home console version in Time Crisis 2, you could do that with 2 guns, and you could play the 2 guns on the one screen and just shoot just dual wield. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it works really well for like House of Dead 4 as well, since both guns are Uzis, but shaking both of them at the same time like kills all sense of like nerve endings in your wrists. So,
But then again, the guns at the truck, they're absolutely gutter trash anyway. So
I've played on a new machine before, and like I felt the wrath of the new machine in my wrists. It was like, yeah, one game in GG's, and I was like, I can't do this no more.
just drop one and then just use one.
No, the only thing that dropped was me. So
Interesting little side bit here that my first experience of HD gaming was through House of the Dead 4. Because back at that point, I hadn't seen anyone actually play a game of HD quality on a television that was HD ready. And obviously, when you got into the arcades, it was probably the first arcade I ever saw where it was actually a HD screen on it, and it was amazing. And I remember the image being so crisp, and actually got me to play that game, and quickly realised it's a bit pish.
actually, I'm going to pick up on that and just say that House of the Dead 4, from what I remember correctly from my trivia, was one of the very first games to run in 1080i. And
Right.
use actually use a DVI to HDMI cable to run the game. So it is one of the very first HD arcade games.
And so it's actually truly HD.
Yeah. So the PlayStation
that's-
port is dead accurate, basically.
That I never knew that. That's actually quite good to know.
So, yeah, I've played House of the Dead 4 enough times to know that that game has to be in HD or that game will look like utter crap. So,
We just look like every other House of the Dead.
yeah, basically, which is, I don't know if that's more good than bad, but like whatever. Right, so we've got controllers and we've kind of touched on consoles. So, what's consoles saying about rail shooters then, basically?
That they're not needed. Simple of it.
That's the point.
I'm sorry, but I was touching this at the start. Rail shooters are a really fun game, but they're such a niche, and they belong in the arcades. And it's because the fact is that when you're at home, the experience is going to just boot you out. It's even if you have the light guns, you're never going to have the light gun that works as well as it does in the arcade. And when you're at home, you just rather just play another game and wait till
Well,
your arcades to play.
It's also because the arcade culture is completely different. Like in the arcade, you have to actually pay a single coin. You have to pay money
Yeah.
to actually make your credit last as long as it wants. And obviously, in the arcade, you could have the mentality to like try to get through the game with one credit, and that's how you get good.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
so I was just going to just finish your thought for you, but I get what you're saying, yeah.
But yeah,
I gotta say, when you say that they belong in the arcade, but however, I do think some console ports of some rail shooters like do work. For example, I think the House of the Dead games, minus the Wii versions, have kind of matured well on home consoles, and I must admit, like House of the Dead 3 and 4 on the PlayStation are actually very, very good ports, and with the PS, I think with the Move controller is probably more accurate than the arcade version. So I think that some games work well, aka Time Crisis doesn't work so well because you don't have the pedal, but that gets ported very quickly anyway. So I think it's dependent from rail shooter to rail shooter, but I think it's not. I think certain ones where you have to have really dedicated stuff like Deadstorm Pirates or Paradise Lost, where you've got the giant wheel and you've got the gun mount thing and stuff like that, where it really has the experience, is a lot harder to port on console than, for example, stuff like House of the Dead or Point Blank, for example, where it's just a simple gun basically.
Well, that's just you were talking about this earlier actually when they did a port of Silent Scope
Yes,
that was really horrible. No, I never played the port, but I could easily see that one being one that boots you out the experience without the big sniper rifle.
Oh no, it really does, because essentially what it does is give you the scope on your TV, if I remember correctly, and it just doesn't work.
There's a Silent Scope game on Game Boy Advance. Sick.
what?
Really?
No.
That I have to find. That I have to play. I have to play
Must
that game. I have to find that
research.
one.
I actually remember one of the better rail shooters on the Wii is actually Sin and Punishment.
Oh God, I remember that.
Very good. Oh yeah, it's full shite.
Man,
So many I've played, I just forgot.
Sin and Punishment. Jeez.
That's good. That's an extremely good one. Hard as crap, but extremely good.
Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to play it myself, but I've been getting regurgitated a lot of information from my cousin.
I've actually played it already, the Wii one.
Does anyone have a copy of it?
I do.
Oh look, man, bring me in.
Okay, fair enough. The only thing is, yeah, that game, it's only really, really good. It's because obviously it plays like a rail shooter, but obviously you can dodge and move
Yeah.
up the screen and stuff like that. The only thing is that the 2-player in the Wii one is absolute cack because the second player does not control a character, they just control crosshair. And that's it.
Here's, but to tie that back into what we're talking about though, would you think a game like Sin and Punishment work better as a pure arcade version than it would as a Wii console game?
If you took the movement out, then yes. If not, then I don't think so. Because mostly that when you play arcade, like say a rail shooter, it's always more being about precision and accuracy and how fast you are on the trigger, and reloading the right times and all that. With Sin and Punishment, it's not so much. It's more about dodging at the right time, firing when needed, blah blah blah. It doesn't follow the conventions of most like more famous on the rail shooters. If that makes any sense.
It follows more
Yeah.
of a sort of shoot 'em up variation rather than an actual rail shooter in terms of dodge.
It's got elements, definitely. It's just not, yeah, as I said, not completely conventional on the rail. So
I guess you could say stuff that reminds me of do you know The Shoot on
Shoot.
PS?
Oh yeah,
on
yeah,
PS.
yeah.
Oh yes, another one.
That
Oh,
game
there's a real shooter we forgot to mention. Yeah.
that game works really well.
Kick.
No, I think as a rail shooter, it's actually really solid, and it's not. It's not more about survival in that game. It's more about points.
Yeah,
So-
but I think what's better to say is that not as a rail shooter, but as a tech demo for the move, it was solid. But I don't know. I wouldn't be putting that in any kind of example of the longevity of the rail shooter. That it felt like such a tech demo of that game. I really couldn't put that on any. I couldn't put that on the same kind of footing as we're talking about other console games, because that game would have been just as crap in the arcades, or just as bland in the arcades rather, as it was on the console. Because I wouldn't call it a bad game, but it's, I don't know, just in reflection, I just know I've played better. I know I've done better in games.
I think it's not the case of the fact that it's good. I think it's more of a case of that it shows what you can do with stuff like the move controller in like console gaming in terms of rail shooters. It added a bit more stuff in terms of obviously movement, doing certain different actions to get certain different things, to give it a little bit more than it's just like, yes, point, shoot, reload, and give it a little bit more to it. So I guess I kind of see that it's not a great game, but it does bring up some interesting concepts that people should consider in the future if they want to make a rail shooter. So
I don't know. I'm not going to be able to shift from this idea that the rail shooter it's quite a niche, and I can understand its use in the arcades, and when it comes to consoles, you're either it's hard to validate the point of the rail shooter on the console when you can either just go a little bit further and make it into a full first-person shooter, or you can take a step back and aim for a more shoot 'em up style and create two completely different styles. Because I don't know, the rail shooter always feels like it's just a simple like one section of a game, and it's not really something you can base a full gaming experience on. So it makes sense to put that in the arcades, where the experience can be trying to survive the whole game, or just trying to get as many points you can so you can get on the scoreboard to show off to people. But I don't know, when you put that on a home console, it doesn't feel like it belongs there. It's not something that you really need to have at home. It's the exact same reason why my copy of Initial D I barely play, but every time you put me in a Chocolate Hero, I'll easily pump about £5 into that game, because it's more of an experience playing it in the arcade than it is on my home console.
now look, man, a HD port of Die Hard Trilogy 2 will make you change your mind.
I actually remember that.
That game will make you change your mind. Well, probably not, but still.
I'm not. Did that actually come out? I'm not actually too sure. I know I remember hearing it ages ago. Never actually got around to playing it, but
I remember a certain point in Die Hard Trilogy.
I know that came out. No, but I mean, again, that game totally works just because of the era it came out in. I mean, it came out in 1994, and it was a Die Hard game. Everyone was buying it, and the kind of stuff you got, you just never played before. I mean, was there ever a game like Die Hard 1 on the PlayStation before that?
I could say Panic Attack. Not Point Blank was on there. And the original Time Crisis 1 was on there as well, and Project Titan was in there too. So
yeah, but I don't know. It was at the time I remember it being such a weird experience. Then again, I also have to say it was probably my least favorite of the 3 trilogy games. I always preferred Vengeance and the first Die Hard more than Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2 was a classic.
Yeah, the one with big rocket destroy everything.
Yeah, man.
That's so good.
that rocket that just beats everything, so sick. So basically, it seems that in terms of rail shooters, it's looking a little bleak. We'll say a little bleak, but I think that when it comes to personally, when it comes to rail shooters, I think with the whole dying aspect of the arcades in general, I think that more people are going to be using stuff like PSN or XBLA to like release stuff like rail shooters and stuff. May not be like a big huge like project, but it could be maybe to like test the engine or just to make a side story out of a game or whatnot, or it could be just an inspirational game or artistic based game like Child of Eden / Res.
Yes.
So essentially, what you're saying, they can use it better for tech demos of
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, I think
Essentially, the
That's
same
that's
as-
exact. Sorry. That works with the idea of saying it works well in a niche. If you can find a really good place to put it, it can work really well. Child of Eden's a great example of that. It's just a beautifully artistic, audibly lovely game, and it fits that niche really well. But you're not going to be able to put that in comparison of your AAA games or even some of your great wee indie games. It just kind of fits into its own little niche, does what it does really well, and kind of it gets left alone in that little hole. But I don't think you're ever going to have the rail shooter as something that can really challenge the top tier of gaming. And it's obviously one of those things that will never fit on the bottom tier. So it's got to be one of the things it belongs in the arcade in that sense, that it's a bit archaic but can still be a lot of fun. And that makes more sense in my head. I think I'm just too tired now.
I think the thing is with like when it comes to rail shooters, I think no one could ever make a rail shooter which will ever touch AAA gaming. If someone did that, I would actually like eat my own trainers. Like seriously, if someone can prove me wrong and make a Time Crisis or a House of the Dead which sells more copies than Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, whatever number we were on at the time, I would actually eat my trainers. In pleasure.
That will be a very long day since let's put it this way. Have you noticed on like Time Crisis and all that, the Time Crisis 3 onwards, they've always had to shove a girl on the cover just trying to make sales.
Actually, to be fair, the box of House of the Dead 4 have 2 European guys. Yeah, so basically 2 girls. So
And if not mistaken, Time Crisis 4 just had that one big guy with the gun.
the big the white guy that had dreads. That was really odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, to talk about like a racial confusion like during production. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Time Crisis 4 has 2 guys on there. One of them looks like a girl though, and unfortunately in House of the Dead 4 the girl looks a bit weird. I need to actually pull up the picture of like the do you know when you've got a game highlighted on PSN? And they have the weirdest picture of Kate Green. Swear I've shown this to you, Firei. And she looks so bewildered and so high. And it's like...
Show me, please.
Huh?
Don't show me.
No, I'll have to just... I'll make a picture out of it and I'll put it up on Facebook. That it is worth seeing. It is an absolute joke. But I don't think... I think in terms of like just putting a girl there, I don't think rail shooters have been resorted to that lately. It'll be interesting to have like a girl like in just underwear on Child of Eden, but I don't think that will happen. So
yeah, Child of Eden's box art wasn't really like anything. It was just a silhouette and colours.
All you ever need in that game.
yeah, man. I think the thing is, I think rail shooters, the way rail shooters apply, are the same way that shoot 'em ups and dance games and stuff like that apply. It's like they'll have their popular times and blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, there won't be anything as Call of Duty or actually I can't even put SF4 in that category. Oh well, so much for that.
Yeah, I think it's partly to do with the arcade culture dying as well. I think that's a huge contribution to it. It's like, does anyone remember the Star Wars game where you actually you get to do shoot on the ships and you get lightsaber? You can do lightsaber battles. Remember that? That one. It's I think it was called. I think it's the Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. Where you have to do all missions, so you'd be able to do the Death Star mission, Battle Hoth, blah blah blah, and you'd be able to like it's on the rail shooters, but also it gives you sub segments to where you actually hold a lightsaber and you have to fight like Boba Fett and Darth Vader by moving your lightsaber in like top left right hand to block their lightsaber and stuff like that. And I guess no one remembers that besides me. I'm guessing.
I remember there being another game. It was one where you played as a samurai and you had to whip your sword. And whip the handle like a sword. What was that one?
Yeah. Oh, I've totally forgotten. That was technically on the rail slicer.
It was called Samurai No,
Shogun.
The Samurai Showdown.
No, Samurai Shogun or something like that. Yeah, something like that. That's a bloody Trocadero have got that in it.
Yeah, they had a few of
Yeah.
those. It didn't run too well half the time as well,
Oh,
because you
no,
just slash randomly.
It was just terrible. The controller was just broken.
It's just like another day on the Wii, really.
Yeah, basically. No. It's I said the culture has changed. I mean, like from the old big ass Galaxian 10-player mother effing big screen motherfucker. If you know what I mean. No one remembers that, I'm guessing. But from that time to the rail shooters, House of the Dead, and all that. Now, why play in an arcade when you can play at home for like a fraction of the price what you would spend to actually clock a game in an arcade, if that makes any sense. So
And and the minute you get it home, if you're going to put shooting in the game, why not add a little bit of movement and turn it into a first-person shooter rather than play it as just a rail shooter, which is far too restrictive and doesn't allow the players to really get much more of the game than a once playthrough thing that you can eventually complete, and that's you.
But that's the sort of mentality nowadays with gamers. It's just like we want more. But I actually do sort of think that the internet is a big thing to blame for the death of most arcades. Because nowadays you can just get anything over the internet and you'll be done with it. But it was just
Well, like that copy of King of Fighters 13, yeah.
yeah. Man.
Now, again, this is what I'm coming back to when it comes to light shooters. Light shooters, rail shooters rather, should always be made with the light gun, and the arcade can give you that deal of coming with the light gun. It's why things like DDR and light and rail shooters will always make sense, and driving games can always make a lot more sense when you put it in the arcade than back in the old days where you had like your Simpsons games. Because the arcade still has its purpose, and it's for that niche, and that niche is where rail shooters belongs. It doesn't belong in the consoles as much as it does in the arcades. Even if they are starting to die out, they just belong there.
Unfortunately, the cost of creating an arcade game, let alone the location test, machine design, and blah blah blah, the cost is just so unviable to so many companies. So I think in terms of like being able to adapt it on console does help the fact that there's always a chance that rail shooters can be put on console, and rather than having the whole like genre like just die out, because I'd rather not be left in a world of just like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and SF4. It's stuff like, I think the whole thing with the PlayStation Move, Wii controller to an extent, and a couple other stuff like being able to have that resurgence in rail shooters, aka you've got House of the Dead 3 or 4 come out on PSN, which included House of the Dead 4 Special, which if anyone knows about. It also included obviously Dark Side and Umbrella Chronicles HD is coming out, and just various stuff like that. I think
well, yeah, go ahead.
boost is needed basically.
Yeah.
So
To be completely fair, it's not rail shooters right now on the console aren't totally dead. I mean, what new games coming out? You got I guess everyone knows what Panzer Dragoon is. So the successor to that, the Crimson Dragon, is coming out soon. So that's also on the rail shooter. So that's one to look forward to. So yeah, it's not totally dead, but it could be better.
House of the Dead Overkill was really good actually.
It was actually really quite fun.
Yeah, just the PlayStation 3 version was a lot better than the Wii one, just because of like the fact that the game didn't frame skip every 3.5 seconds was nice. So
it's always a plus.
yeah, that's always a plus. Being able to, for the fact that if your screen doesn't flicker, like always helps the aim. There's nothing worse than like having an enemy randomly stepping like in front of you, and all of a sudden like the screen flickers and you're down one life, and so wait, what?
Although you could just say, I got a S,
No, but wait, hold on. Like, no game I know frame skips on a stagnant picture. That's dumb. And like that's the discussion that I had on the last podcast of why Agarest does not work as a game. So actually that's a story that's already been told, so I'm not even gonna go there. So, but at the end of the day, it's it seems that rail shooters are always will be niche. Probably won't have anything in terms of high sales, but they make us happy. So I think which is the main thing.
Yeah.
So I guess
Definitely, they have a lot to we have a lot to thank them for. Definitely, I mean, it's definitely made the arcade culture back in the day. It's influenced so many top games, even certain FPSs. There's lots of influence. So never forgotten. But unless it comes with some sort of like amazing new mechanic or something like that, or amazing big ass 360 screen around you, or something amazing that would entice gamers away from console gaming. Unfortunately, it might be a bit of a
to be fair,
dead horse.
the 360 gaming stuff has already been done actually.
Yeah, with Call of Duty, hasn't it?
Lol.
One that does tie into it. Do you ever remember the movie Gamer? Where you had like the
Yes, I do remember that.
he had. I mean, it's a horrible movie. Don't get me wrong. But he had the whole thing where it's like holographic. That could actually bring back the rail shooter in a weird way. If you just get a holographic one, you can actually see around you. But that's probably not going to be in our lifetime, sadly. Like we'll have to. We may not see that holographic game, unfortunately.
To be fair,
To be honest, the holographic technology is at our fingertips. We just need to implement it.
I think the whole thing with with Gamer, I think the interesting aspect, not only would it like bring back rail shooters, it will also get rid of quite a few prisoners at the same time as well. That
No,
could
don't
be,
go that far.
that'd be one way of solving a couple problems at the same time through gaming. Yeah. Actually, I wanted just to jump on what Firei said about the 360 screen thing, because he's obviously said Call of Duty, but House of the Dead 4 had two 42-inch TVs, and you sit in between them, and you had this chair where the chair moved to each screen depending on where the zombies are coming from. So it's kind of been done, but the problem is with House of the Dead 4 Special is that the machines were really expensive, and there was only ever 16 of them made. So
I never do that at all. That's amazing.
no, actually, I'm gonna put the Wikipedia link up right in the chat because it's actually unblockable. It's just a shame that we never got one here. Right.
I would travel the country to find that one.
But if this, the Wikipedia of it has actually got the list of where all of them are, and I think the nearest one is like Italy or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
I could do with another trip to Italy. That works.
Yeah, go back to your homeland.
Sick. The Europe, Japan, Brazil, Russia, Dubai, and Hong Kong.
Macau. Fisherman's Wharf. Oh my god.
I don't even know where that is. Oh crap, it's near Hong Kong. Okay, whatever.
No, Macau's like Portuguese.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
No,
But
wait. No, it is Hong Kong, you're right.
oh yeah.
It's kind of more in the mountain range outside of Hong Kong.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually worth going to. It'll be interesting if House of the Dead 4 was made in that perspective, but I could imagine that takes a lot of time to program and that sort of crap. So I don't worry about it too much.
But I
Nah.
bet you'll be looking to find House of the Dead 4 special when you're in Bapu City though.
It'll probably be by accident though. Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up. I'd rather do you know what? It might just be about rebuying Galgun anyway. Forget it. I'll just buy Galgun again, sort my problems out. Right, so I think we've almost come to the end of our podcast. I'm not too sure how long this has been going on for, but it says 69,980 frames.
It's been about just over an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, that's cool. Right, I'm going to start off with you, Nippon. Any recommendations in terms of rail shooters?
Real shooters, recommendations. Pokemon Snap, it's always a good one. But seriously, Time Crisis 2 is always going to be a classic. Just have a special place in my heart as being one of the best rail shooters I've ever played.
Okay, cool. Right, Junk Boy, any recommendations?
I'm probably going to say if you want to see a good example of how you can take the rail shooter a little bit further than just on the rails, play Killer 7. There's not been a game like it. It's probably the best use of the rail shooter concept I've seen in a long time. And it's a Suda 51 game, which for me is a good deal that you're at least going to walk out with a good time. Not a great time, but a good time.
Fair enough. Firei, any recommendations?
Well, I'm gonna be a total sellout and say Panzer Dragoon. If you can afford a Sega Saturn and can buy the game for £75, but if you don't have access to that, do try any of the House of Dead series. I guess that's the I think
Just
that's
not
probably-
3. Just not 3.
Just not 3. Play 1, 2, or 4. It doesn't matter which one. They're all good. But try 3.
And Overkill, don't forget that one.
Oh yeah, and Overkill.
Yeah, as long as it's not the Wii version.
But yeah, that's the one to start with, I think.
I'm actually going to recommend. I'm going to recommend SF4 because it's got Saga in there. So
Legit.
no, in all seriousness, I'm gonna recommend House of Dead 4 because that game, not only that game finds different ways of interacting with your character. For example, shaking the gun to like push enemies off you, and that you could be knocked down and stuff like that, and still not take damage and blah 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 blah. There's also stuff like the way the grenades work. It's actually easier to one credit than other House of the Dead and other rail shooter games in general because it's actually at least fair. So I'm going to give it that. My second recommendation goes to Elevator Action Death Parade because that game is man's. Like, I think everyone should watch videos on that game because that game is quite sick and that game is worth having a third person on. And my final recommendation goes out to Rez. So I think Rez needs to be brought in forever. And the HD version, which is on XBLA, does not give that game enough justice. And I do advise people, if you could get your hands on it, please play with the vibration controller. Not for the reasons stated in most cases, but it gives an extra added depth. Wait, hold on, that sounds weird anyway.
Right, if you don't mind, then I do have to add another recommendation. If you're going to play Rez, Child of Eden is maybe not be just as good, but it's an experience in itself. Especially, I mean, it's one of the few things that really made sense with that move control. Could easily, I'm not too sure about the Kinect, but I can imagine it works on that too.
The Kinect actually probably does it more justice rather than the move. I will admit, and I'll throw my hands up and say it, that the move one isn't as good as the Kinect.
Right, okay, fair enough, but it's still a really fun game. And again, that whole idea of giving you a free hand to, smoke your very legal tobacco cigarettes. Obviously, it gives you an experience, a hell of an experience.
To be fair, I've got a one-handed PS1. I've got a one-handed PS2 controller, so like I've been living with that dream for quite a while now, actually.
A one-handed PS1 controller. That's
no,
intense.
no, it's a one-handed PS2 controller. Actually, I play fantasy. I play Fantasy Star with it. It's like quite bomb. Who needs camera controls? Cameras? What's cameras? Bun cameras. Let's all just play Bomberman instead. The perfect rail shooter. Right, guys. I think we're gonna wrap up for tonight because I think it's like 1:10 in the morning, and
Yeah.
and
People sleep.
yeah, people should sleep. And I don't know, yeah, it's just bare late, but it's been fun, guys. Again, Commander Nippon, Junk Boy, Firei. This is NJ's podcast on what is a rail shooter. So hopefully, guys, you can check us out next time. Blah 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 blah. Follow Facebook, follow YouTube, follow our website. Yeah, follow Twitter. Blah blah blah. All the same old, and we'll see you guys later.